Welcome to Mornings with Patricia. Happy Monday. Whew, look at this. It's a Sunday afternoon and oh my gosh, it's really warm, but it is a beautiful, beautiful day. So last week I said I was going to talk a little bit about New Thought, and you might be very apprised of what New Thought is, or maybe you're not. But I want to talk a little bit around the New Thought principles and why they really offer such an amazing toolbox for our day-to-day living. Um, so in the 1800s, in New England, Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Henry David Thoreau were really, really the precursors of a lot of this, um, well, precursors to New Thought in a lot of ways, and they were part of what was called the Transcendentalist. And what made them so amazing, especially to me, Emerson, is his whole idea of self-reliance and looking at the world in a new way, in a time where, okay, so think about this, there were the circuit riders, there were the evangelicals, and America was really trying to find its way. Really trying to find its way. And so you would have, this hellfire and brimstone and, don't be a sinner and all of these sorts of things. And then along comes Emerson. And Emerson says, don't be looking out at society. Look within yourself. You're not a victim. There's no victims here. What you need to do is you need to rely on yourself because everything you need is within you. So, in a lot of ways, the early New Thought people took that maybe, I don't want to say one step further, but in a different way, even more, perhaps more spiritual. And I say that rather loosely because Emerson was amazing soul. But the early New Thought leaders also pulled on some of the Eastern traditions, right? They would bring in meditation, and they brought in this feeling or this not feeling, this understanding about Jesus, right? And so New Thought camps at that time, and probably still are kind of split, was Jesus really crucified? And for many New Thought people, that's just not really the major issue, right? It's what Jesus stood for, and that was love. That is love. And that unconditional love. The other thing is, they brought in this whole idea that God is good, and if all there is God, then all there is good. And this is one of the most powerful, I think, tools in our spiritual toolbox, right? Because so often we get spiritual amnesia, or we forget who we are, and we forget that all things are possible within. But if God is good, and we say God is good, and God is all there is, and if God is all there is, and all there is good, then everything else, absolutely everything else, becomes an appearance, right? But where does it become an appearance? I mean, we see, I've talked about this before, we see through our eyes, right? And then our eyes link it to perception and memories that'll link it up to other memories, the things that look similar, and we make this story about what's happening, and then we get this whole range of emotions around the story. It's a very powerful process, but remember, it's not a place, it's not a thing. It's a process. It's our thinking process. But, last week I talked about beliefs. So this is what the early New Thought, and even today the New Thought leaders and churches are showing us that, this is about there is nothing else. We've never left heaven. We are the divine. And anything else is an appearance. And it's an appearance that gives us an experience, but it also takes us down the pathway of not feeling happy or feeling disempowered whatever that is. And anytime that comes up, that's a heavy feeling. Okay, so that's a real heavy feeling. And when you feel a heaviness, you know that that's not the truth for you, right? Because vibratory rate is the light, a high vibration, very, very high vibration. And that is the truth of who we are. So as you go about your day, it's about, stopping. And if you are feeling upset or you're feeling unbalanced, it's about checking in and saying, oh, am I linking this to something? What is this perception? And I'm not a victim. So why am I engaging in something that is so painful and so harmful to myself? What would it be like? What would it feel like if I could turn that around and say, oh no, all there is God. We are just surrounded by love and light, by beings all around us that we can't see. And when my mom was dying of cancer, and I may have talked about this, but when my mom was dying of cancer about 10 years ago, March, it'll be 10 years, when she was dying of cancer, she was staying with my oldest sister, and she had slipped into, that pre-death coma. And my sister had a baby monitor in her room, and my sister lived out a ways from everything. So I was staying the night, and we had the other monitor out in the living room where we were talking. The sun's getting in there, sorry. And all of a sudden, I heard all these voices, murmurings. They were these beautiful murmurings, and there were a bunch of voices. And I looked over at my sister, and she says, I know. She says, I hear them. I've heard them for the last couple of nights. They're talking to her, getting her ready, letting her know that it's okay. And I thought, isn't that amazing to actually be able to hear that? And you couldn't hear what they were talking about, but it was definitely in the room. It wasn't like a frequency or anything like that. There was no crackling. It was clear. And I could hear her murmur, kind of incoherently, but I could once in a great while. So she hadn't gone into the deep, deep coma yet. And all these years later, it still makes me think about, it's not when we die. We have this presence around us of all of the ones who have passed before us, all the light beings, all the angels, all the teachers around us 24/7. And yet, so often we think we are alone. We choose to feel sad. We choose to feel that separated. But the New Thought teachers have shown us, and if you read some of the wonderful things, I'm just trying to think. Troward. I always have a hard time saying his name. Troward. It's Troward is his last name. Nona Brooks from Divine Science. Emily Curtis Hopkins. All these amazing authors and teachers, and they were so adamant. I loved that they knew. They had this amazing knowing about that they were the divine, that we all are, and that, the world looks differently if you claim that all is God, God is good, so all is good. So the question becomes, when you're having a tough time, right, how can all be good? Well, there are so many, many, many gifts within that. And I'll be talking in the next week about some of my gifts. I'm not going to quite share that publicly yet, but there's been a turn of events for me, and it's, and it's taught me so much, and it's a wonderful thing. So, so I really can't talk about it yet, but probably by the end of the week I'll be able to talk about it with you, and this amazing experience that has happened, and so, but the tools. I'm getting back to the tools now. The tools that they've given us. The most powerful one is to remember that all is good. All is good. And you don't have to try to find the good in things. This is the amazing thing about the teaching. It becomes like a mantra, right? God is good. God is all there is. All there is good. God is good. God is all there is. All there is good. It's kind of like Jesus said, the scales falling from your eyes. The world looked differently before, and then when you really understand that and embrace that, incorporate that into your life, all of a sudden, it's almost like you wake up in a different world. And what's interesting about that is you can be standing next to someone else and literally you don't see what they see. They are having literally a different experience. They are seeing things that may be terrible. Is that to say there aren't terrible things that are happening? Well, it would appear to be terrible. It would. There's a whole range of experiences out there. And I'm not suggesting to be in denial of the world. I'm not saying, not that being a Pollyanna is bad, but I'm not saying, hey, you got to be a Pollyanna. I'm just saying, if you say this mantra to yourself on this absolutely magical, marvelous Monday, God is good. God is all there is. All there is good. It's like everything changes. Try it. Try it today and see. And give me some feedback. See what you think. Okay, so there's a little tool for your toolbox today for your magical marvelous Monday. And 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, I love myself. I love you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.